This project began with me preparing for a sabbatical. I wanted to hear from my students what they think would be best for their education, what motivates and inspires them, and what they feel was just not cutting it. It was wonderful that they showed enthusiasm for my process and my project. In class, I asked them their purpose in gaining an education. This question made them silent as though the answer were obvious. How could I ask such a question? So I said they could make up an answer, any answer. Someone softly said, "To get a job?" I smiled and said, "Yes, and maybe there is more to education than just getting a job." They looked at each other and at me and said, "What? How?" One of the most important things for me as a teacher in an English writing class is to remind them of their individual uniqueness. I believe this is a way for them to overcome reservations about writing, something most students fear doing. I am convinced that when students recognize their creative potential, they are more motivated to learn, to create, to fulfill their purpose. This is intrinsic to their and our success. Writing is an empowering process. In order to want to write, one must know one has something valuable to say. But many feel disempowered by having to write. We must remind them they are the authors of their lives.
It was overall a different experience than any other normal class you would take. Being able to research on a topic that, like I said, you do on a daily basis, makes you really want to push forward, maybe create a change. How you should change, how you should be yourself, how you should be one with yourself. You don't want to be this generic person. You want to be creative. You want to be different. You don't want to just be another person in line just to do the standards, or want to be your own person. And you learn a lot by yourself, even though you're not really expecting that or doing it on purpose. You're writing, and then say you're writing about yourself, and then all of a sudden you look back onto it a few days later and you're like, that's this is how I write, this is who I am.
I don't think this is particular to me, but I do believe that most people, when it comes to writing, if they think that they're not good at it, they'll be holding a lot back. Mm-hmm. And if you free them up, the first couple of works they do are going to be quite unorganized and quite, their flaws are going to really show, but that needs to be encouraged, because only until they free themselves up to being able to make mistakes are they going to actually learn from them. Writing an unstructured creationism paper. I had fun writing that paper and trying to use different archetypes, and I didn't think I'd have fun, but it was interesting. I liked writing it. I discovered that the archetypes I liked exploring meant more to me than other archetypes and other symbols. It gives you insight. It gives you lots of insight. It gives you perspective, which is something I like very much. Other cultures, other people, other time frames, because everything's relative to the beholder. So different. I wrote another paper about that, about the theme that was in one of the movies that we needed to write about was perspective, and it was about somebody who only until objectively looking at himself found out what he was. And that's important, because you don't know who you are until you do that. That it's okay to make mistakes, that we should try to make reasonable mistakes that are relevant to the assignment. Like, I'll never find another class like that one.
Really? And
and that's good and bad, honestly.
Sure.
So.
When I entered English 60, I wasn't really a good writer, but after this class I've noticed that I got myself I connected with myself in my writing due to the journals that we did, because it has to do with our own personal experiences and how to write it without having everyone else care about what they think.
I guess writing can help you through by writing down your emotions or how you feel, and it's like your own personal therapy. It's helped me look at myself and just think, okay, I need to get my act together.
I think writing's important because it's a type of expressing yourself, because some people can express themselves through art, some do it through music, and I think one of the most powerful ways of expressing oneself is through writing, because you're actually using your words in order to express how you feel inside.
Through the journals and through the assignments, I was really, I don't want to say forced, but I really had to ask myself a lot. I would come up to a conclusion, but then I would have to ask myself again, why? Why are we coming to this conclusion? And I was constantly made to just keep digging deeper and deeper about the subject. And I was really able to take a look at those things and take the new information that I got and reevaluate a lot of things. Finding your truth, finding what's inside you, finding what the world really means to you, because every day you go to work or you have kids or you're making dinner and you just sometimes maybe you forget about what's inside you, what you're capable of thinking and what you're capable of accomplishing in life. And it's just you find out who you are.
This is wonder. This is taking responsibility.
What I hated about English 60 was me being afraid of failure. Knowing that I have found myself and my weaknesses, and I can actually catch myself falling down and going down that same path again. I know to catch myself and bring myself up. I don't give up, and what that does to me, it makes me create more self-confidence, more motivation. I go and I try to see my values into life and to writing and wanting to pursue that and want to engage that in a deeper way. I would tell them to take this class course because it will help you find you. It will help you find your inner peace, and it will help you find who you are and who you are through your writing.
Writing gives you freedom. It makes you free. You can create stories that probably don't make sense, but it sets you free. It sets your mind free, and it sets your creativity free.
In their journals, I require them to write a self-reflective paragraph in which they evaluate their work, what they notice about their skills, and what changes they need to make. An online student had noted she had become enlightened in my course, and we had never met.
But it definitely helps when trying to learn new words. You write them down and then you come up with a sentence after you figured out what the word means, and it builds your vocabulary a lot more than any other technique that I know of. I've tried. And then you reflect on what you wrote about or what you've done that week. I just hope that it was we could have done a lot more of the journals, only because the reflecting part, I'd wish I could look back on it and think, I guess that's how I felt back then, but now, I've grown into something better.
What we did in this class definitely helped me with the free writing and our journals, being able to just write what I feel instead of what I have to write is a very important part of writing. You want to be able to actually express your opinion, and if you don't know how you are as a writer, then you're not going to be able to be successful in your writing career later on.
The best part I liked about this entire experience of mine was the journals, because once again, it really does interact with yourself and what you're thinking. And you put it down in writing, and it makes you reflect on saying who you are, what you do, and what are your interests, and why. You have to explain why all these are you, what makes you. And I believe that every teacher should do these journals so they can encourage their students to write who they are, what they're feeling, and get in touch with themselves.
Yes, discussion is really important in my classes. Not only do students share their interests, but also with direction and encouragement, they open to greater possibilities in them. This is what we are here for, aren't we? Does it do that?
Well, you learn new things. You may not learn it the same way as other people, but you learn about yourself. You know, it's not just books. It's about personality, about life, about communities, and then you expand on that and then really build your own path. And I do feel changed in this class. It's been an experience, basically. I believe that there's a difference between learning and experiencing, and this was an experience.
You change the topic or whatever it is that we're working on, you change it slightly so it's like what we think or what we feel and how it should be. And I think that's a really great idea because everyone says the kids are the future, but yet they don't even let us give our ideas and our insights of what we want or what we think things should be going. It's just,
I think if teachers had more activities to get the students involved and involve other different aspects of learning into their subject, it'll be more interesting, and students will be more aware of other things than just what they're supposed to be learning about in that subject.
I think the purpose of education is, well, personally, I think it's to be a well-rounded, individual. I think that in order to be well-rounded, that's my main goal in life is to get education, to be socially aware of things, and then just to understand yourself.
I believe the purpose of education is to expose you to the world around you to better understand the world around you. Without education, you're limiting yourself to a small space when there's a huge, vast amount of knowledge out there that will enrich your life.
Values are important because if you don't live by them, you don't have, wholeness. You need to have values in your life in order to know where you're going. You can't just go off of anything. You need to know who you are, and part of knowing who you are is by having your own values, not what everyone else thinks. It's about you.
Such self-discovery happens through accessing the creative spirit within, and creativity is ultimately play. Through such play, we learn how we may walk in the world.
I'm creating a hut because one of my characters, she is forced to live in exile in a hut with her family. And exile, well, maybe there's probably a bunch of different meanings, but to be physically in exile means that you're separated from not necessarily society, but from everything, family, everything, you can be in exile and still be with your family, but you're choosing not to connect with them, But I think a lot of people think that being in exile is like being sent off to an island and living on your own, but like I said, that's not necessarily the only type of exile there is.
Well, pretty much what it is it's supposed to be like the Grim Reaper, but not at the same time, because what I analyze in life and just anything is that life can present death, but it has its humane tone to it. So, that's why he has human teeth looking kind of way, not barely any teeth, and just ignore what's going on in my personal life and just do the work, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know, that's the best thing I can think of.
Yeah. Sometimes they say choose to be happy just because there's no other choice.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's true.
And then when you choose to be happy, just because, things start to change even inside. So at the end of term, they illustrate their writings on mythical texts that we have read. This is a way to synthesize all our lessons. Many have a breakthrough. They begin to understand what they can become. This helps them define their purpose, which is play. And play unfolds their genius. What is a mystical creation?
A magical creation coming to life
And how does it come to life?
by pretty much just having confidence that it could come to life.
And how do you get that confidence?
To be happy with who you are and not judging yourself and just going for whatever you want. And my left hand just started moving.
Seriously?
Yes. And then I just got determined. I was motivated. Determined to come up with this colorful cover for my creation stories.
You happy with that?
I am. I'm not finished yet. That's amazing.
What
I'm
is?
unstoppable. I am unstoppable.
Well, hello, my name is Jane Jepson, and I'm a counselor here at Cypress College. The quote is something like, we have to rethink everything. We have to think our relationships to everybody. We have to think about how we relate to one another. We have just thinking. You know, I think critical thinking is important, but it has to be more than just critical thinking. It has to be thinking that considers others. It has to be, first of all, a recognition of our interdependence in the world, on our environment. And so everything, our educational system and the ideas that we bring across to our students has to be from a standpoint of sustainability and equality. And everything has a cost. I'm hopeful that education is headed in that direction, that there are enough educators who are forward thinkers and consider all these issues, the complexity, the diversity, the impact we have on each other and in our environment and the future, and think about their core self, their authentic self, and how they want to be a part of this world. I think there are enough educators out there that this is becoming a real opportunity. It's a real threshold time for everyone to be involved in this, what could be a very exciting process worldwide.
So yes, Jane is right on. Bringing all these streams together, we dream a different vision will arise in education, one of wonder. Diverse challenges face us today. Schools must invite us to co-create ways that restore human dignity through achieving our potential to love rather than to destroy. This too is a fundamental purpose of education. What will be your role in redefining the purpose of education? What will you do to make a difference?
I am unstoppable.